War in Afghanistan was never meant to be a multi-generational undertaking. We were attacked. We went to war with clear goals. We achieved those objectives. Bin Laden is dead, and Al-Qaeda is degraded in Iraq and Afghanistan. And it's time to end the forever war.
On September 11, 2001, two civilian planes hijacked by terrorists crashed into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in Manhattan, New York. Nearly 3,000 people lost their lives in the attacks. As a key turning point in human history, the September 11 attacks have caused widespread and far-reaching consequences that are only fathomable many years later.
On my orders, the United States military has begun strikes against Al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan.
After the September 11 attacks, under the pretext of the Taliban's refusal to hand over Osama bin Laden, the US-led military forces invaded Afghanistan. It was the first war in the 21st century and the longest war in US history. In its 20-year presence in Afghanistan, the United States failed to completely eliminate the threat of terrorism and ended up making the security situation in Afghanistan even worse, leaving behind a war-torn country plagued by instability, poverty, and death. Over the past 2 decades, the US-led operations on Afghan soil have caused more than 30,000 civilian deaths and more than 60,000 injuries, and forced about 11 million people into refugee status.
अमेरिका ने जो 20 साल यहाँ गुजारी है सिर्फ बर्बादी ले अफगानिस्तान में जो रहा कोई आदमी शहर में बाहर निकला तो चोरी डकैती सब कुछ वहाँ अफगानिस्तान में हो रहा था.
In the protracted war in Afghanistan, the United States has also paid the price of mounting financial costs and military casualties.
After 800,000 Americans serving in Afghanistan, I've traveled that whole country. Brave and honorable service. After 20,744 American servicemen and women injured, and the loss of 2,461 American personnel, including 13 lives, lost just this week.
According to a study by Brown University, the total cost of the US war in Afghanistan in the past 20 years amounts to about $2.26 trillion, or the equivalent of more than $300 million per day. It's not just Afghanistan. Since 2001, the US has launched wars and military operations in the name of anti-terrorism in about 80 countries, leaving more than 800,000 people dead, about 330,000 of them civilians. The hegemonic acts of the United States have not eradicated terrorist activities. After September 11, the international terrorist activities only became more rampant. It has proven that if the root causes of terrorism were not eradicated, even if terrorist organizations and extremist forces were crippled in Afghanistan, Iraq, and other places, it would be impossible to prevent them from re-emerging in other parts of the world. The spread of extremist ideas via the internet has triggered a series of lone wolf terrorist attacks around the world. The vicious circle of violence against violence repeats itself. In the 21st century, the interests of all countries are closely interconnected, and no country can prosper in isolation or meet all challenges on its own. On September 7, the Taliban announced the formation of Afghanistan's caretaker government in Kabul. but it still faces tough challenges to stabilize the situation, improve people's livelihoods, properly handle relations with neighboring countries, and gain international recognition. A series of wars waged in the name of anti-terrorism over the past 2 decades have plunged many countries into chaos, left hundreds of thousands of people dead, and forced tens of millions of people to flee their homes. All this have proven that terrorism cannot be uprooted by any individual country or by any single means. Only by upholding unity and further deepening international cooperation can we finally win the war against terrorism.